You're sitting in your apartment on a quiet Tuesday evening. The silence feels heavy, not peaceful, heavy. Your phone sits next to you, screen dark. You could read, you could watch something, you could just be still. But there's this feeling rising in your chest. Not quite anxiety, not quite loneliness. Something else, a restlessness that lives in your bones. You scroll through contacts, wondering who might be free, who might want to grab coffee, who might just talk. From the outside, you look fine. But inside, something is draining away, like a phone battery dropping percentage by percentage. Except what's depleting isn't energy. It's your sense of being alive. You've tried enjoying your own company. God, you've tried. But sitting alone feels like holding your breath underwater. You can do it. You're doing it right now. But every moment, your body is screaming for air. And here's what nobody talks about. There's a particular kind of shame that comes with needing people. Not wanting them, but needing them. The world celebrates the person who doesn't need anyone. The self-sufficient, the independent, the one who finds peace in solitude. But what if your brain is wired differently? What if other people aren't just nice to have around, but the very thing that makes you feel like yourself? People often assume that needing social connection means you're incomplete, dependent, unable to be alone with your thoughts. But that's not the full truth. Sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes the person who seeks connection isn't running from themselves. They're running toward the environment where they finally feel like themselves. Research from psychologist Hans Eysenck traced this difference to fundamental variations in cortical arousal, the baseline level of stimulation in your brain. For some people, that baseline runs naturally high. Their nervous system is already alert in quiet environments. For others, it runs lower. Their brain requires external input to reach optimal functioning. Neither is better, neither is broken. They're just different operating systems. What if solitude, for you, isn't peace? It's static? Their inner world doesn't disappear in company. It emerges. Not because they're shallow, because their psychological architecture is built for collaboration, not isolation. Maybe connection isn't a crutch. It's oxygen. What if you're not incomplete? What if you're just differently complete? Your body knows before your mind does. There's a tightness in your chest, a fidgeting in your hands, a sense that the walls are closer than they were an hour ago. It's not that you can't concentrate, it's that your brain is searching for something that isn't there. A voice, a laugh, a presence. You're never more aware of yourself than when you're alone, but you've never felt less like yourself. Every thought feels half-formed, like a sentence waiting for someone to finish it. For some people, solitude is the mirror. For you, other people are. This pattern learned to form early. Maybe you were the child who cried at nap time, not from tiredness, but because quiet felt wrong in a way you couldn't name. You learned that the world rewards people who don't need anyone, so you taught yourself to appear independent, to smile and say you were fine. But inside, you were counting the hours until the next gathering, the next phone call, the next moment when you wouldn't be alone with the static in your head. People said you were clingy, needy, too much, but you weren't seeking attention. You were seeking equilibrium. This wasn't a failure to develop independence. This was your nervous system identifying its optimal environment. This made sense once. It still makes sense now. Here's what's actually happening in your brain. Eysenck's research showed that extroverts run at a lower baseline of cortical arousal. Their nervous system requires external input to reach optimal functioning, not overstimulation. Optimal stimulation. Your brain isn't seeking distraction. It's seeking the conditions it needs to function at its best. And neuroscientists have found that extroverts show heightened activity in brain regions associated with reward processing during social interaction, because their dopamine systems are calibrated to respond strongly to external stimuli. Your brain literally lights up in the presence of other people. Not because you're dependent, because you're designed this way. You're not defective, you're adapted. And here's where modern culture makes it harder. We live in a world that worships independence. Every self-help book tells you the same thing. Learn to be comfortable in your own company. Love yourself first, as if needing connection is a sign you haven't done enough inner work. But our ancestors didn't live in isolated apartments. They lived in tribes, in constant proximity to other humans. Solitude wasn't a luxury, it was a danger. Your nervous system still remembers that. When you're alone, some ancient part of your brain registers threat, not dramatically, just a low-level hum of "this isn't right." When you're with others, that hum goes quiet. Not because you're codependent, because you're responding to millions of years of evolutionary wiring. So what happens when you stop fighting this? Maybe the first thing that shifts is the shame. You stop apologizing for texting first, for preferring a coffee shop to your empty kitchen, for needing to call someone after a hard day. You let yourself admit, I don't like being alone, and that's okay. Not because I'm broken, because my brain works differently, and different doesn't need to be fixed. Maybe you start noticing how much clearer your thoughts become mid-conversation. How an idea that felt vague in your head suddenly crystallizes the moment you say it aloud. You're not outsourcing your thinking, you're processing through your optimal medium. Some people think in silence. You think by talking, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you start recognizing your strengths. You're the person who walks into a room full of strangers and leaves with 3 new friends. You're the person who processes grief by gathering loved ones, not by withdrawing. Resilient, but not through isolation, through connection. Strong, but not through self-sufficiency, through interdependence. Maybe you start seeing that the person who thrives in solitude isn't better than you. They recharge alone. You recharge together. They find themselves in silence. You find yourself in sound. 2 different strategies for the same goal, feeling alive. You're sitting in your apartment again, but this time you're not alone. A friend is on the couch next to you. You're not even talking really, just existing in the same space. And something in your chest has loosened. The restlessness is gone. The static has cleared. This is the paradox. The person who finds peace in solitude looks inward and finds wholeness. You look outward and find the same thing. Neither path is wrong. Neither is incomplete. Just different routes to the same destination. Feeling real. You were never broken. You were just looking for yourself in the wrong place. There's an old belief that strength means needing no one. But maybe that's only half the story. Maybe there's another kind of strength. The strength to admit you need connection. The strength to reach out first. Not dependence, interdependence. Not weakness. Honesty. The redwood tree grows tall in stillness. The coral reef grows vibrant in motion. Neither is failing. Neither is less alive. You flourish in connection, in the sound of another voice, in the presence of another heartbeat. You're not avoiding yourself. You're finding yourself in the only place you were ever going to find yourself, in relationship. Not a flaw to fix, a truth to honor. You were never meant to be alone. Some people are, but you're not. And in accepting that, you finally come home. Not to yourself in isolation, but to yourself in connection, where you've always belonged. If you feel most alive in the presence of others, I want to hear from you. What's the moment you realize solitude wasn't your refuge? Not when someone told you, but when you knew, deep in your body, that you were built differently. Your answer might help someone else recognize themselves. because this community learns from each other's stories, not just from mine. I'll be reading everyone.